The night is silent, too silent. Then, a whisper slithers through the darkness, a voice that shouldn't be there. Every culture, every corner of this world has its own stories of things that go bump in the night. Tales so terrifying, they've clung to humanity's shadow for centuries. Tonight, we're unraveling 25 of the spookiest myths ever whispered across civilizations. From cursed tombs that strike down the greedy to weeping ghosts forever searching for their lost children, these legends are more than just campfire stories, they're echoes of our deepest fears. Some warn against forbidden places, others punish the wicked, and a few might still be lurking. So turn off the lights, lean in close, and let's journey together into the heart of these chilling tales. By the end, you'll never look at a shadow or hear the wind the same way again. And who knows, maybe you'll recognize a myth from your own homeland or discover something new waiting in the dark. But before we wander too deep into the darkness, let's start with a tale that has haunted explorers for centuries: the curse of the Pharaohs. Ancient Egypt's sands hold more than just golden treasures. They guard secrets laced with vengeance from beyond the grave. At the heart of this legend lies the tomb of King Tutankhamun, the boy pharaoh whose resting place became a stage for tragedy. When British archaeologist Howard Carter first cracked open that sealed chamber in 1922, the world marveled at the riches inside. But soon, whispers began of a curse etched into the tomb's walls, warning that death shall come on swift wings to those who disturb the peace of the king. And death did come. Lord Carnarvon, the expedition's financier, died mere months later from a mysterious infection, followed by others connected to the dig. Newspapers spun tales of supernatural retribution, while skeptics pointed to mold spores or toxic artifacts. Yet Carter himself lived for years after, untouched. So was it divine punishment or just bad luck? The truth may never be fully unearthed, but one thing's certain: the curse of Tutankhamun remains a chilling reminder that some doors once opened can never be closed. Now, let's cross the ocean to the misty rivers of Latin America, where another ghostly figure lingers in the night: La Llorona, the weeping woman. Her story is one of sorrow and rage, a cautionary tale whispered for generations. According to legend, she was once a beautiful woman named Maria, who drowned her own children in a fit of jealousy or madness, only to realize her terrible mistake too late. Now cursed to wander for eternity, she wails along riverbanks, her ghostly cries echoing as she searches for the souls she lost. The details of her story shift from village to village. In Mexico, she's often dressed in white, her face hidden by long, wet hair. In Guatemala, some say she appears as a skeletal figure, her hollow eyes filled with endless grief. But no matter the version, the terror she inspires is the same. Parents tell their children that if they hear her weeping after dark, they must run, because La Llorona might mistake them for her own lost little ones and drag them into the water. And this isn't just an old wives' tale. Even today, people claim to see her, a shadowy figure by the water, a voice sobbing in the reeds. Some say the legend persists because it works, frightening kids away from dangerous currents and deep, murky ponds. But others swear there's something more to it, something that lingers in the humid night air, a grief so powerful it refuses to fade. Whether she's a ghost, a metaphor, or something in between, one thing's certain: if you're ever near a river at midnight and hear a woman crying, you won't stick around to find out. Next, we travel further into the shadows, where an even darker spirit waits, one that doesn't just haunt but possesses. Now, let's step into the realm of Jewish folklore, where the shadows hold a different kind of terror. The Dybbuk, a restless spirit that clings to the living. Unlike ghosts who haunt places, a Dybbuk seeks refuge in a human body, twisting the soul of its victim into something unrecognizable. Rooted in ancient Kabbalistic teachings, this malevolent entity is often the soul of a sinner denied entry to the afterlife, forced to wander until it finds a host to invade. The tales of Dybbuk possession are as chilling as they are ancient. One of the most famous cases dates back to 16th century Safed, where a young woman suddenly began speaking in the voice of a dead man, revealing secrets no one could have known. Rabbis performed a grueling exorcism, demanding the spirit reveal its name and sins before finally driving it out. These rituals weren't just about force, they were acts of spiritual healing, a process called tikkun hanefesh, or soul rectification. The goal wasn't just to banish the Dybbuk, but to help it atone, freeing both the possessed and the possessor from their torment. Modern horror has borrowed heavily from these legends. Films like The Possession bring the Dybbuk to life with eerie accuracy, from the cursed objects that invite them in to the frantic exorcisms that try to cast them out. But the real horror lies in the folklore's deeper message that some sins are so heavy they refuse to stay buried. Whether you see the Dybbuk as a metaphor for guilt or a literal demon, one thing's certain: in the world of Jewish myth, the dead don't always stay where they belong. And speaking of the dead who refuse to rest, our next stop takes us to the Philippines, where a creature even more grotesque lurks in the night. But now, let's turn our attention to the dense jungles and shadowy villages of the Philippines, where a far more visceral terror waits in the dark: the Aswang. This shape-shifting monster isn't just a single creature but an entire category of horrors, each more grotesque than the last. By day, an Aswang might blend into the crowd, appearing as an ordinary villager. But by night, it sheds its human disguise, revealing a form straight out of nightmares: an elongated, whip-like tongue for slurping unborn children from their mothers' wombs, or even a detachable upper torso that flies through the night, leaving its lower half behind to avoid suspicion. The Aswang's hunger is relentless, targeting pregnant women and children with a predator's precision. Communities have developed their own defenses, hanging garlic near doorways or placing holy symbols under beds to repel these creatures. Some even keep special brooms made of coconut leaves, believed to sweep away an Aswang's invisible presence. And the stories aren't just old wives' tales. Rural areas still report chilling encounters. In the province of Capiz, locals whisper of a midwife who vanished after delivering a baby, only for the infant to be found lifeless the next morning, its tiny body drained of blood. What makes the Aswang so terrifying isn't just its monstrous form, but its uncanny ability to hide in plain sight. Unlike ghosts or demons, it could be your neighbor, your friend, or even the stranger who smiled at you too long in the market. This myth taps into a universal fear that the greatest dangers aren't the ones lurking in the shadows, but the ones wearing a human face. And as we cross the Pacific, another haunting legend awaits, one that shook an entire American family to its core. But now, let's journey from the jungles of the Philippines to the rolling farmlands of early America, where one of the most chilling hauntings in history unfolded. In the early 1800s, the Bell family of Tennessee found themselves at the mercy of an invisible tormentor, a presence so cruel and relentless it would become known as the Bell Witch. This wasn't just whispers in the night. The Bell Witch made her presence known with violent force, yanking hair, slapping faces, and even hurling furniture across rooms. She spoke in eerie, disembodied voices, sometimes singing hymns or reciting scripture, other times spewing venomous threats. Strangest of all, she seemed to know everything about the Bells, predicting future events with unsettling accuracy. The witch reserved her worst fury for John Bell, the family patriarch. She tormented him for years, leaving him weak and terrified, until one morning he was found paralyzed in bed, a mysterious vial of dark liquid by his side. He died that same day, and as the family gathered to mourn, the witch's voice echoed through the house, laughing and declaring, "I've got old John Bell at last." To this day, no one knows for certain what haunted the Bells. Some say it was the spirit of a wronged neighbor, others claim it was a demonic force. Skeptics argue it was an elaborate hoax, perhaps a disgruntled family member pulling strings. But with so many witnesses, including future President Andrew Jackson, who reportedly fled the farm after his own encounter, the legend of the bell, which endures as one of America's most terrifying unsolved mysteries. And as we leave the shadows of Tennessee behind, another ghostly figure awaits, this time in the snow-laden forests of Japan. Now, let's step into the silent, snow-covered forests of Japan, where the air is so cold it steals your breath, and where a far more chilling presence waits among the blizzards. Meet the Yuki-onna, the ghostly woman in white who drifts through winter storms, her pale skin blending with the snow, her hollow eyes freezing the souls of those who dare cross her path. She doesn't just haunt the wilderness, she embodies it. According to legend, the Yuki-onna appears to lost travelers, her beauty as hypnotic as it is deadly. With a single breath, she can turn a man to ice, leaving nothing but a frozen statue in her wake. But there's more to her than mindless cruelty. In folktales like The Snow Bride, she's often portrayed as a tragic figure, a spirit bound to the snow by sorrow or betrayal, her actions echoing Buddhist themes of impermanence, the idea that all things, even life itself, are as fleeting as a melting snowflake. Yet, the Yuki-onna isn't just a monster. Over time, she's become something of a romantic antihero in pop culture, appearing in anime, films, and literature as both a vengeful spirit and a lonely soul searching for warmth. Some stories even tell of her sparing kind-hearted men or falling in love, only to vanish with the spring thaw. Whether she's a warning against the dangers of winter or a poetic reminder of life's fragility, the Yuki-onna remains one of Japan's most enduring and haunting legends. And as the snow settles on her tail, another shadow stirs, this time in the misty moors of the British Isles. But now, let's leave the icy grip of Japan behind and wander into the fog-drenched landscapes of the British Isles, where an even older terror prowls the shadows. Here, the black dog is no ordinary creature, it's a spectral omen, a harbinger of doom with glowing eyes that pierce the night. Across England and Scotland, this phantom beast takes many forms, each more chilling than the last. In Yorkshire, they call it the Barghest, a monstrous hound with dagger-like teeth, said to stalk the moors before a death occurs. Over in East Anglia, it's Black Shuck, a ghostly dog whose appearance, sometimes headless, sometimes with eyes like burning coals, has terrified villagers for centuries. The black dog isn't just confined to folklore, it's slithered its way into literature too. Remember the Grim from Harry Potter? That shadowy, foreboding dog was inspired by these very legends, a nod to the British obsession with death-omening hounds. Even Sir Arthur Conan Doyle couldn't resist weaving the myth into The Hound of the Baskervilles. But here's the eerie part, these stories aren't just relics of the past. To this day, travelers report sightings near ancient ruins like the crumbling abbeys of Suffolk or the lonely crossroads of Dartmoor. Some claim the dog vanishes into thin air, leaving only a sense of dread in its wake. Others swear it follows them, a silent shadow with no footprints in the mud. Whether it's a warning from the other side or a trick of the misty landscape, the black dog remains one of Britain's most persistent and unsettling legends. And as the fog thickens around its tail, another creature stirs in the frozen forests of North America, where hunger takes on a far more sinister form. But now, let's cross the Atlantic and venture into the snowbound forests of North America, where an ancient terror lurks among the pines. The Wendigo is no ordinary monster. It's a chilling embodiment of desperation and greed, born from the harsh winters of Algonquian lore. Imagine a creature so consumed by hunger that it feasts on human flesh, its gaunt frame stretching taller with every meal, its heart frozen solid despite the fire of its insatiable appetite. This isn't just a campfire tale. The Wendigo carries deep psychological weight, symbolizing the dangers of unchecked desire and the moral decay that follows. Some scholars even link it to real-life cases of Wendigo psychosis, a rare condition where sufferers believe they're transforming into the very monster they fear, driven by starvation or isolation. It's a haunting reminder of how thin the line between humanity and horror can be, Of course, the Wendigo has clawed its way into modern culture, too. From horror films like Ravenous to episodes of Supernatural, its legend terrifies new audiences. But here's where things get controversial. Some indigenous communities argue that turning their sacred myths into entertainment trivializes their traditions. It's a debate that forces us to ask, where's the line between sharing folklore and exploiting it? Whether seen as a cautionary tale or a nightmare made flesh, the Wendigo's hunger never fades. And as its echoes fade into the winter wind, another creature stirs far to the south, where the tropical nights hide a very different kind of predator. Now, let's leave the frozen forests behind and step into the humid nights of Puerto Rico, where a very different kind of terror emerged in the 1990s. The Chupacabra, or goat sucker, burst onto the scene not from ancient folklore but from modern panic, a creature that drained the blood of livestock, leaving behind eerie, puncture-marked carcasses. At first, witnesses described something straight out of a sci-fi nightmare, a reptilian beast with glowing red eyes, spines down its back, and an otherworldly gait. Some even claimed it had alien-like features, fueling theories of extraterrestrial experiments gone wrong. But as sightings spread across Latin America and the southern United States, a stranger twist emerged. Scientists and skeptics began pointing to a more earthly explanation: mangy coyotes or wild dogs, their appearances distorted by disease. Yet, for farmers who lost entire herds overnight, no scientific theory could erase the fear. Their terrified testimonies painted a picture of something far more sinister than a sick animal. One farmer swore he saw the creature leap over a 10-foot fence with unnatural ease. Another described finding his goats completely drained of blood with no trace of a struggle. Whether monster or myth, the Chupacabra tapped into something primal, the fear of the unknown lurking just beyond the edge of civilization. And as the debate rages on, one thing remains clear: the legend of the Chupacabra is far from over, but our journey through the world's darkest myths isn't stopping here. Next, we set sail into stormy seas where a ghostly ship's crew is said to wander for eternity. From the blood-soaked fields of Puerto Rico, we now turn our gaze to the endless, churning ocean where storms brew and legends rise with the tide. The Flying Dutchman is no mere ghost story. It's a haunting vision burned into the minds of sailors for centuries. Picture this: a skeletal ship, its tattered sails glowing with an eerie light, cutting through the fog as waves crash like thunder. It's said to appear suddenly, a harbinger of doom, forever cursed to sail the seas without ever reaching shore. The myth first took root in the 17th century, whispered among Dutch sailors terrified of the treacherous Cape of Good Hope. Some say the ship's captain, a man named Hendrik van der Decken, swore an oath to round the Cape even if it took until Judgment Day, and the heavens took him at his word. Others claim the crew committed some unspeakable sin, condemning them to an eternity adrift. Whatever the truth, the legend spread like wildfire, with even King George V reportedly spotting the phantom vessel during his naval days. But the Flying Dutchman isn't just a sailor's nightmare, it's woven deep into pirate lore. Tales of cursed ships and ghostly crews inspired everything from shanties to blockbuster films like Pirates of the Caribbean, where Davy Jones's rotting vessel mirrors the Dutchman's eternal torment. And while modern skeptics dismiss sightings as mirages or storm tricks, those who have glimpsed the ship tell a different story. They speak of a chill in the air, a silence where the wind should howl, and the unshakable feeling that they've stared into the afterlife. So the next time you hear the distant roll of thunder over the waves, look closely. You might just catch a glimpse of those ghostly sails and realize some myths refuse to fade into the mist. But our voyage through the world's darkest tales is far from over. Ahead, we travel to ancient China where the dead don't stay buried, they hop. Leaving behind the ghostly seas, we step into the shadowed alleys of ancient China where the dead don't just walk, they hop. Meet the Jiangshi, the infamous hopping vampire, a creature as terrifying as it is bizarre. Unlike the graceful phantoms of Western lore, this reanimated corpse moves with stiff, jerking leaps, arms outstretched, its papery skin glowing under the moonlight. Born from restless souls trapped in decaying bodies, the Jiangshi is a nightmare straight out of Taoist folklore, where the balance between life and death is fragile, and the dead can refuse to stay buried. The myth's roots dig deep into Taoist rituals meant to guide spirits peacefully to the afterlife. When a corpse wasn't properly laid to rest, whether due to violent death, unfinished business, or disrespectful burial, its soul could fester, reanimating the body as a jiangshi. To ward off these creatures, Taoist priests crafted talismans inscribed with sacred symbols, slapping them onto the vampire's forehead to freeze it mid-hop. Families hung mirrors and scattered rice outside doors, believing the jiangshi would stop to count every grain or flee from its own reflection. But here's the twist: the jiangshi isn't just a figure of terror, it's also a star of comedy. In the late 20th century, Hong Kong filmmakers spun the myth into slapstick horror, with movies like Mr. Vampire turning the stiff-legged monster into a bumbling, almost endearing foe. These films packed in Taoist exorcisms, flying talismans, and plenty of hopping chaos, making the jiangshi a cult icon. Yet behind the laughter lies a darker truth. The myth may have sprung from real-life corpse-moving practices. In rural China, traveling laborers would transport the dead over long distances by strapping them to bamboo poles, carrying them upright as they bounced along mountain paths. To outsiders, these swaying, stiff figures in the mist might have looked like something far more sinister. So the next time you see a shadow lurching in the moonlight, don't assume it's just the wind. It could be a jiangshi forever hopping between the worlds of the living and the dead. And speaking of restless spirits, our journey isn't done yet. Up next, we venture into the sun-scorched outback of Australia, where the bunyip lurks in the murky waters, waiting. Now, let's leave the hopping horrors of China behind and wade into the murky waters of Australia's outback, where something far more mysterious lurks beneath the surface. Meet the bunyip, a creature as elusive as it is terrifying, woven into the fabric of Aboriginal Dreamtime stories for thousands of years. This swamp-dwelling monster is a shapeshifter in every sense, with descriptions ranging from a dog-faced beast with razor-sharp teeth to a seal-like creature with a haunting, mournful cry. No matter its form, one thing remains constant: the bunyip is a warning, a guardian of the waterholes, teaching children to respect the dangers hidden in the deep. The Dreamtime stories paint the bunyip as more than just a monster. It's a lesson, a way to keep the young from wandering too close to treacherous waters. Elders would tell tales of the bunyip dragging the careless into the depths, its eerie wails echoing through the night as a reminder of nature's unforgiving power. But when European settlers arrived, they brought their own fears, twisting the bunyip into something else entirely. Colonial accounts describe frantic bunyip hunts, with terrified farmers blaming the creature for missing livestock. Newspapers even published supposed sightings, fueling a mix of fascination and dread. Some claimed to have found bones or heard its unearthly screams, though none could prove the bunyip's existence. So what could explain such a persistent myth? Some researchers point to Australia's rich history of megafauna giant, now extinct creatures like the diprotodon, a wombat-like giant that once roamed the land. Could fading memories of these ancient beasts have inspired the bunyip's many forms? Others suggest the haunting cries of bitterns or seals, distorted by the vast, lonely wetlands, might have fed the legend. Whatever the truth, the bunyip endures, a shadowy figure at the edge of understanding, reminding us that some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved. And just as the bunyip guards the waters, our journey takes us next to the frozen north, where Norse legends speak of the Draugr, undead warriors who refuse to rest, their burial mounds brimming with cursed treasure. But that's a tale for another night. From the sun-scorched swamps of Australia, we now journey to the icy realms of Norse legend, where the dead do not rest quietly. Among the snow-laden burial mounds of Scandinavia, the Draugr wait vengeful spirits of fallen Vikings, cursed to guard their treasures beyond death. These aren't mere skeletons, they're superhuman monstrosities, swollen to grotesque size, with skin blackened by decay and strength enough to crush bones with a single grip. The sagas paint them as more than mindless ghouls. Take Egil's saga, where a Draugr named Kveldulfr rises to slaughter those who disturb his grave, his rage echoing the warrior's ferocity in life. But the Norse didn't just fear these creatures, they prepared for them. Archaeologists have uncovered graves lined with iron spikes, some even pinning skeletons in place, a grim precaution to keep the dead from walking. These anti-Draugr measures reveal a culture deeply haunted by the idea that honor in life didn't always mean peace in death. Modern minds might compare them to zombies, but the Draugr are far more cunning. They're sorcerers, shapeshifters, even prophets of doom. And if you've played Skyrim, you've faced their digital descendants, blue-skinned revenants shouting ancient curses, a testament to how these myths still grip our imagination. Yet the game barely scratches the surface of their terror. Real Norse lore warns that a Draugr's curse could blight entire villages, withering crops and souring milk until the grave was appeased. So why did these legends persist? Perhaps they mirrored Viking fears of greed, of dishonor, of the restless sea that claimed so many. Or maybe they were cautionary tales, reminding the living to respect the dead. Whatever the truth, the Draugr endure, a chilling reminder that some warriors never truly lay down their swords. And as we leave these frozen horrors behind, another shape-shifter waits in the shadows, one not of ice but of dark magic. But that's a tale for another night. Now, let's turn our attention to the humid jungles and bustling villages of Southeast Asia, where a far more unsettling kind of spirit lurks, one bound not by nature but by human cruelty. Meet the Toyol, a grotesque fetal spirit enslaved through dark magic to serve its master's greed. Imagine a child-sized creature with bulging eyes, sharp teeth, and an insatiable hunger for mischief, compelled to slink into homes under cover of night, stealing gold, jewelry, or even secrets for its owner. The creation of a Toyol is where the horror truly deepens. According to legend, a sorcerer must first acquire the corpse of an unborn or stillborn infant, often through grave robbing or worse. The tiny body is then subjected to twisted rituals, sometimes buried with dolls or soaked in oils, to bind its soul into eternal servitude. The Toyol's master keeps it obedient with offerings of milk and blood, a perverse mockery of parental care. But this bond comes at a price. The spirit's unnatural existence breeds chaos, and its childlike whims can turn violent if neglected. Yet communities have long fought back with ingenious defenses. Mirrors are placed near doorways, as folklore claims the Toyol will pause to admire its reflection, buying time for victims to escape. Needles hidden in rice jars or under pillows are said to prick the creature, deterring theft. Some families even whisper prayers to benevolent spirits, begging for protection against this stolen child's restless rage. What makes the Toyol so chilling isn't just its appearance, it's the tragedy behind it. This myth reflects real fears of infant mortality, exploitation, and the moral rot of unchecked greed. It asks a haunting question: how far would someone go for power? And in the shadows of Southeast Asia, the answer might just be a stolen soul, forever bound to a life it never chose. But our journey through the world's darkest myths isn't over yet. Ahead lies a creature born not from magic, but from pure, skin-crawling horror. A being so monstrous it defies even the laws of anatomy. Leaving the tropical horrors of the Toyol behind, we now sail north to the windswept Orkney Islands, where a nightmare ripped straight from anatomy textbooks haunts the shores. The Nukkalavi is no ordinary monster. It's a grotesque fusion of horse and rider, fused together in a single, skinless abomination. Picture sinews glistening red, muscles exposed to the salty air, and a breath so toxic it withers crops and spreads disease. This isn't just a creature of fear, it's a living plague, a punishment from the sea. Unlike other water spirits, the Nuckelavee has one glaring weakness: freshwater. Legends say it cannot cross running streams or touch rain, a quirk that villagers exploited by dousing doorways or fleeing to inland wells. But the horror lingers in oral traditions passed down to warn children away from the coast during storms. Fishermen would whisper of its single, cyclopean eye burning like embers in the mist, or its rasping voice cursing those who dared to overfish its waters. What makes the Nuckelavee especially unsettling is how it contrasts with Scotland's gentler Kelpie myths. Where Kelpies might lure travelers into lakes with beauty or trickery, the Nuckelavee offers no such subtlety. It's pure, unfiltered dread. Some scholars suggest its origins lie in real outbreaks of livestock disease, the rotting carcasses of animals twisted into something supernatural by terrified imaginations. Yet the Nuckelavee's legacy endures because it's more than a monster. It's a reminder of nature's wrath, a symbol of the sea's dual role as life-giver and destroyer. And in the Orkneys, where the ocean rules all, that's a lesson written in salt, blood, and the echoes of a skinless thing that still rides the storm. But our descent into the world's darkest myths isn't done yet. Next, we encounter a horror that defies even the Nuckelavee's grotesque form, a creature not just feared but forbidden to name. From the storm-lashed shores of Scotland, we now journey to the steamy jungles of Malaysia, where a horror so visceral it chills the blood awaits. The Penanggalan is no ordinary ghost. It's a floating female head, trailing glistening entrails like macabre ribbons as it hunts for its favorite prey, newborn babies. By day, this creature might appear as an ordinary woman, often a midwife or healer. But by night, her head detaches from her body, leaving behind her lower half as she takes flight, intestines coiled beneath her like a grotesque tail. The Penanggalan's origins are steeped in dark magic. According to legend, she was once a woman who practiced forbidden rituals to preserve her youth and beauty, only to be cursed into this monstrous form. Villagers feared postpartum women dabbling in black magic, believing they could transform into Penanggalans. To protect newborns, families would place thorny branches around cradles or scatter broken glass on windowsills, anything to keep that dripping, disembodied horror at bay. But the most effective defense, vinegar. Tradition says the Penanggalan must return to her body by dawn, and submerging her dangling organs in vinegar prevents her from reattaching. Some homes even kept vinegar-filled jars by doorways as traps, hoping to catch the creature mid-hunt. Historic wood carvings depict her with hollow eyes and a mouth stretched in a silent scream, a warning etched in art for generations. What makes the Penanggalan uniquely terrifying is how it twists the sacred act of childbirth into something monstrous. It preys on the vulnerable, turning maternal spaces into hunting grounds. Yet beneath the fear lies a darker truth. This myth may have been used to control women, branding those who defied societal roles as literal monsters. And as we peel back the layers of this chilling tale, another nightmare waits in the shadows, one so taboo, even speaking its name is said to summon its wrath. Now we turn to the vast deserts of the American Southwest, where the Navajo people speak in hushed tones of a terror so profound, even its name is rarely uttered aloud. The Skinwalker is not just a monster, it's a violation of nature itself, a human who has gained the power to transform into animals through dark witchcraft. Imagine a coyote that walks upright, its eyes glowing with unnatural intelligence, or a deer that suddenly twists its head backward to stare at you with a human face. These are the horrors whispered around campfires in Navajo country, where the mere mention of skinwalkers is often met with silence or a quick change of subject. The Navajo, or Dene, hold deep cultural taboos around these beings, believing that speaking of them too openly can invite their attention. Traditional teachings say skinwalkers were once medicine men who twisted their sacred knowledge for evil, using rituals to steal the skins of wolves, bears, or owls. They don't just shapeshift, they curse families, spread sickness, and mimic the voices of loved ones to lure victims into the night. Some say they can move at impossible speeds, their limbs cracking as they contort into new forms. Modern intrigue surrounds Utah's so-called Skinwalker Ranch, a hotspot of paranormal activity where ranchers reported mutilated cattle, floating orbs, and figures that vanished into thin air. The U.S. government even secretly studied the area, fueling theories of everything from extraterrestrials to interdimensional portals. But the Navajo will tell you, some doors are better left unopened. This isn't just a campfire tale, it's a living belief tied to respect, fear, and the consequences of trespassing into forbidden knowledge. Unlike other myths, the Skinwalker carries a warning: curiosity can be deadly. So if you ever find yourself in Navajo land at dusk, and the wind carries the sound of laughter that isn't quite human, walk the other way. And as the desert sands swallow the last light of day, another legend stirs, one that hides behind a question as innocent as it is lethal. Now we cross the ocean to the neon-lit streets of Japan, where urban legends take on a life of their own. Among the most chilling is the tale of Yuki-onna, the slit-mouthed woman. Picture this: you're walking home at night when a figure in a surgical mask approaches. She seems ordinary until she asks, "Am I beautiful?" If you say yes, she removes the mask, revealing a grotesque grin stretching ear to ear, carved by a jealous husband or a botched surgery, depending on the version. Then comes the follow-up: "How about now?" Answer wrong, and she'll slice your mouth to match hers with a pair of scissors. This nightmare didn't emerge from ancient folklore but exploded in the late 1970s, sparking mass hysteria. Schools kept children indoors, police patrolled neighborhoods, and parents warned kids to avoid strangers, especially women with masks. The panic grew so intense that officials had to publicly debunk the legend, though whispers of sightings persisted. Some say the story tapped into deeper fears: distrust of medical practices, violence against women, or the anonymity of modern urban life. Survival rules spread like wildfire. The safest reply: "You're average, throwing her off balance so you can flee." Others swore carrying certain candies could distract her, a trick borrowed from older ghost tales. And if you're really desperate, shout pomade, a bizarre loophole supposedly making her vanish in confusion. What makes Yuki-onna so enduring isn't just her gore, but her unsettling question. Beauty, judgment, the fear of giving the wrong answer. It's a mirror held up to society's obsessions. Even today, she lurks in memes and horror games, a reminder that some urban legends cut deeper than folklore ever could. And as the echoes of her scissors fade, we find ourselves drawn to a gentler, yet no less haunting whisper from the forests of Scandinavia. But now, let's step into the misty forests of Scandinavia, where the air hums with a different kind of sorrow. Here, the whispers of the myling drift through the trees, tiny, heartbroken ghosts of children who were never baptized. These lost souls, often the victims of infanticide or abandonment in harsher times, are said to appear as pale, shadowy figures near lonely roads or deep in the woods. Their voices mimic the soft cries of a child, luring travelers with pitiful pleas to be carried or buried properly. Legend warns that if you pick up a myling, its weight grows impossibly heavy, a crushing burden of their unresolved grief. Some tales say they'll cling to your back until you collapse, demanding a Christian burial in hallowed ground. Only then will their restless spirits find peace. This haunting reflects a dark chapter in history where poverty or shame led some families to make unthinkable choices, and the land itself seemed to mourn with them. On especially dark nights, villagers spoke of myling lights, faint glimmers dancing over marshes or graves, believed to be the spirits searching for solace. Even today, parents in rural areas might sing lullabies at dusk, a tender shield against hearing those eerie whispers on the wind. What chills most about the myling isn't just its ghostly presence, but the raw humanity behind it. These aren't monsters, they're echoes of real children denied even the simplest rights, their stories etched into the land's memory. and as their lullabies fade into the pines, our journey takes a sharper turn toward the tropics, where another creature waits in the moonlight, one with a taste for more than just sorrow. Now, let's leave the sorrowful whispers of Scandinavia behind and venture into the moonlit nights of the Philippines, where a far more gruesome predator lurks. Meet the Manananggal, a vampire unlike any other. This terrifying creature has the horrifying ability to sever its own torso, sprout bat-like wings, and take flight, leaving its lower half behind as it hunts for its favorite prey, sleeping couples, especially pregnant women. By day, the Manananggal appears human, blending into village life, but when darkness falls, it reveals its true nature. It uses an elongated, tube-like tongue to suck the hearts of unborn children or drain the blood of its victims. The sheer grotesqueness of its form, a flying upper body with dangling entrails, has made it one of the most feared figures in Filipino folklore. Yet the Manananggal isn't invincible. Locals know how to fight back. Sprinkling salt or crushed garlic around windows and doorways can bar its entry, while bamboo traps are sometimes placed near homes to impale the creature if it lands. Some even claim that finding its discarded lower half and sprinkling it with salt or ash will prevent it from reattaching, leaving the monster to wither by sunrise. Interestingly, the Manananggal shares eerie similarities with Malaysia's Penanggalan, another vampiric, disembodied head with trailing organs. But while both are born from fears of female dark magic, modern retellings have given the Manananggal a feminist twist. Some interpretations frame her as a tragic figure, a woman wronged by society who transforms into a monster as an act of rebellion. Whether seen as a cautionary tale or a symbol of defiance, the Manananggal remains a chilling reminder of the thin line between myth and the fears that shape it. And as we move deeper into the realm of the supernatural, our next stop takes us to the Celtic wilds, where mischief and mystery intertwine. But now, let's step away from the blood-soaked legends of the Philippines and into the misty hills of Celtic folklore, where the lines between mischief and magic blur. Here, the puka reigns supreme, a shape-shifting trickster as unpredictable as the wind. One moment, it might appear as a sleek black horse with glowing eyes, luring travelers onto its back only to give them the wildest ride of their lives. The next, it could take the form of a goat, a rabbit, or even a shadowy human figure, leaving behind twisted crops or eerie whispers in its wake. Yet, the puka isn't purely malevolent. For all its pranks, this creature has a softer side. Some stories tell of farmers who left out offerings, like a portion of the harvest, and woke to find their fields blessed with fertility or their livestock protected from harm. It's this duality that makes the puka so fascinating, a being that tests and rewards, punishes and guides. Halloween, or Samhain as the Celts called it, was when the puka's power peaked. Folklore warned against eating unharvested berries after this night, as they might be cursed by the creature. Travelers were advised to stay indoors lest they fall victim to its chaotic games. But even then, the puka wasn't without mercy. Some tales say it would reveal prophecies or warn of coming disasters to those it favored. Fast forward to modern times, and the puka's legacy lives on in surprising ways. You might recognize its gentler side in the 1950s film Harvey, where a whimsical, invisible rabbit named Puka, a nod to the Celtic original, befriends a kind-hearted drunk. This softer portrayal contrasts sharply with older, darker myths, showing how folklore evolves to reflect the times. Whether feared or adored, the puka remains a symbol of nature's untamed spirit, reminding us that not all mysteries are meant to be solved. And as we prepare to cross into our next tale, the forests of French Canada whisper of another shapeshifter, one bound by a far darker curse. Now, let's journey from the wild hills of Celtic folklore to the dense forests of French Canada, where the night hides a far more sinister shapeshifter, the loup-garou. Unlike the classic European werewolf, this creature isn't just a monster under the full moon. The loup-garou is a cursed human bound by a dark fate that unfolds over 7 long years. Legend says the curse often strikes those who break sacred vows, like skipping church for 7 Fridays in a row or committing unforgivable sins. Once transformed, the loup-garou roams the wilderness, tormented by its own hunger, forced to hunt animals, or worse, humans, until the cycle ends. Cajun campfire tales paint chilling scenes of encounters with the loup-garou. Imagine a traveler lost in the bayou, hearing guttural growls and catching glimpses of a beast with glowing eyes, half wolf, half man. Some stories claim the creature could be freed if someone recognized its human form and called it by name, or if it drew blood, breaking the curse. But woe to those who failed. The loup-garou's rage was said to be unstoppable. In early Quebec, fear of the loup-garou ran so deep that it sparked real-life trials. Communities accused suspected werewolves of witchcraft, with some even forced to confess under pressure. These trials reveal how deeply folklore bled into daily life, turning superstition into something far more terrifying. What sets the loup-garou apart is its tragic humanity. This isn't just a mindless beast, it's a person trapped in their own nightmare, a reminder that the line between man and monster can vanish in a moment of weakness. And as we leave the shadows of French Canada, another eerie figure waits in the Australian outback, one with a far stranger appetite. Leaving behind the cursed forests of French Canada, we now venture into the sun-scorched landscapes of Australia, where the Aboriginal Dreamtime whispers of a creature far more bizarre than any werewolf, the Yarra-Maiha. This isn't your typical monster lurking in the shadows. Picture a small, red-skinned dwarf with suction cup fingers and an unsettling grin, waiting patiently in the branches of fig trees. Unlike the loup-garou's tragic curse, the Yarra-Maiha is a cunning predator, blending seamlessly into its environment. It doesn't chase its prey, it tricks them. According to Aboriginal lore, this creature mimics the ripe fruit of the fig tree, luring thirsty travelers to rest beneath its branches. When an unsuspecting victim dozes off, the Yarra-Maiha drops down, using its suction-tipped fingers to drain their blood, leaving them weak but alive. Here's the twist: it doesn't kill outright. Instead, it repeats this process over time, slowly shrinking its victim until they, too, transform into a Yarra-Maiha. It's a chilling cycle of consumption and rebirth, woven into stories meant to teach vigilance and respect for the land. What makes this myth fascinating is its dual role. It's not just a horror story, but a lesson in resourcefulness. Parents would recount tales of the Yarra-Maiha to warn children against wandering alone or trusting seemingly harmless things in the wild. Compare this to other little people legends like Ireland's mischievous fairies or the Navajo's cautionary tales of the Yaitso. But while those beings might steal you away or play tricks, the Yarra-Maiha embodies something darker: the danger of complacency, the price of ignoring the land's hidden perils. And as we peel back the layers of this myth, we're reminded that fear isn't always about the monster. It's about what the monster represents. The Yarra-Maiha isn't just a predator, it's a mirror reflecting the consequences of carelessness. Now, as we step away from the Australian outback, another shadow looms, one rooted in the graveyards of Romania, where the line between myth and history blurs into something even more unsettling. From the sun-baked myths of Australia, we now turn to the shadowy corners of Romania, where the undead don't just lurk in stories, they seep into history itself. Meet the strigoi, the restless dead who refuse to stay buried. These aren't your typical vampires. While Dracula may have stolen the spotlight, the strigoi are the real nightmares that inspired Bram Stoker's legendary tale. Picture a corpse rising from its grave, bloated and ruddy, with an insatiable hunger for the blood of the living. But what makes the strigoi truly terrifying is how deeply they're woven into Romanian folklore and reality. Villagers took drastic measures to keep these revenants at bay. Families would stuff garlic into the mouths of the deceased, pierce their hearts with stakes, or even decapitate them before burial. These rituals weren't just superstition, they were survival. In 2004, the fear of strigoi erupted into full-blown hysteria in a small Romanian village. After a series of unexplained deaths, locals exhumed a man's body, convinced he'd returned as a strigoi. They burned his heart, mixed the ashes with water, and drank it as protection. Sounds extreme. To them, it was as practical as locking your door at night. But here's the twist: science might explain the myth. Tuberculosis outbreaks in the 18th and 19th centuries could have fueled the strigoi legend. Victims of the disease often appeared pale, coughed up blood, and wasted away, uncannily mirroring vampire traits. Even the idea of the undead spreading sickness fits. TB is highly contagious, and families sometimes died one after another as if cursed. Was the strigoi myth born from a desperate attempt to make sense of a terrifying, invisible killer? Yet the strigoi's power endures because it taps into something deeper than disease. It's about the fear of what or who might come back to haunt us. Unlike the Yara Maiha, whose predatory patience, the strigoi represents a violation of death itself, a reminder that the past can claw its way into the present. And as we leave Romania's graveyards behind, one final horror awaits, a terror so vast, so incomprehensible, it defies even a name. But before we close the book on these chilling tales, let's descend into a darkness deeper than any myth we've explored so far, a horror so vast it defies description. Welcome to the realm of Lovecraftian lore, where the true terror lies not in what we can see, but in what we cannot comprehend. H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horrors, often referred to only as the nameless thing, embody the ultimate fear, the fear of the unknowable. These entities exist beyond human understanding, their very presence warping reality and sanity. Imagine stumbling upon something so alien, so ancient, that your mind shatters just from witnessing it. That's the power of Lovecraft's nightmares. They don't just kill you, they erase your sense of meaning. This trope taps into something primal. It's not about ghosts or monsters with clear shapes, but the dread of standing at the edge of an abyss, realizing how small and insignificant we truly are. Lovecraft's horrors aren't defeated by garlic or holy water. They're beyond such trivialities. They're the cosmic indifference of the universe given form. And what's even more unsettling, this idea didn't stay confined to fiction. Modern myths like the SCP Foundation's anomalies carry the same torch. Classified entities so dangerous, their very names are redacted. Whether it's a creature that warps time or an object that drives anyone who touches it to madness, the theme is clear. Some truths are too terrible to speak aloud. So why does this resonate so deeply? Because it mirrors our own existential fears. The universe is vast and we know so little of it. The nameless thing is the embodiment of all we don't and perhaps can't understand. It's the shadow in the corner of your vision, the whisper you can't quite hear. And as we end our journey through these 25 myths, remember, the oldest and strongest fear is fear of the unknown. And in that, Lovecraft's horrors will always have the last wordless scream. But don't let the silence unsettle you just yet, because the world is still full of stories waiting to be told. What chilling legends haunt your corner of the globe? Share them in the comments below, and who knows, we might just summon a part 2. Until then, keep a light on, and maybe don't look too closely into the dark. From the cursed tombs of ancient Egypt to the cosmic horrors of Lovecraft's imagination, we've journeyed through 25 of the world's most spine-chilling myths, each one a testament to humanity's fascination with the unknown. What ties these tales together across continents and centuries is more than just fear. It's the way they reflect our deepest anxieties, our moral boundaries, and the mysteries that still linger just beyond the edges of understanding. Whether it's a weeping ghost warning children of danger or a shape-shifting predator lurking in the shadows, these stories remind us that every culture has its own way of wrestling with the unexplainable. Now we turn the page over to you. What legends send shivers down your spine? Share your local myths in the comments below, because who knows, your story might just inspire part 2 of this eerie exploration. Until then, remember the words of H.P. Lovecraft himself. The oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. So keep your wits about you, stay curious, and maybe don't wander too far into the dark alone. If you enjoyed this dive into the world's spookiest myths, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss our next adventure into the unexplained. And who knows, the next legend we uncover might just be waiting in your own backyard. Sweet dreams if you can manage them.